An awesome question is, which file format is easiest for AI to read? Because when we want to communicate with the different AI models, we kind of want to make it as easy for the models to understand what it is that we want. And the file format that is best is something called Markdown, at least when we're talking about language. And it doesn't matter whether we're using ChatGPT, we're using Claude, DeepSeek, or Gemini. So the thing is that when we are feeding the different models with something complicated, so that can be like a PDF. There's a huge difference between the types of models. So the context window of like the free models or like the $8 model in ChatGPT and the pro version is significantly different. So one has like 8,000 tokens, the other one has 128,000. So that means in a lot of cases, the smaller models will actually struggle if we feed them PDF, where the bigger models can read them. So you're asking, Palle, what is wrong with a PDF? So what is wrong with a PDF is that it's more or less like an image. You can't tell from the code whether it's a headline, it's a subheadline, it's bold, it's a list, it's a paragraph, whatever it is. So it means that the chat model, the language model, first needs to go in and convert the PDF to something it understands. And then after it's converted it to something it understands, then it can start doing our task. And if we're limited on tokens, on the context the model has, then we have a problem sometimes. So it's much better, if we can, to write it in the correct language, right? Because a PDF can use 20 to 60% more tokens than a Markdown document. So if I'm writing, so you're saying like, Palle, write me a text, right? Then I would usually write in words. So word is for human. And then I would finish it and I would make it into a PDF and give you the PDF. If I want to give instructions or do something with AI, I would use Markdown, right? Because that is the language for the language models. So human, PDF, Markdown for AI. And if it's code, I'll give it JSON, and secondary HTML. So the reason why HTML is good too for AI is because HTML has there's like these brackets, and then you have like an H1. So that's a headline one. So that means it doesn't need to think about, is this a headline or whatever? What is this, right? And BR, break. That's a break, right? So it knows that because the HTML document, the code in HTML tells the AI model what it is, right? The Word document doesn't tell it anything. The PDF doesn't tell it anything. So it needs to convert it into like figure out what is a headline, what is a paragraph, and so on and so forth. So I asked ChatGPT to make this model. No, this is actually Gemini. So I asked ChatGPT and Gemini to make this model, and they're more or less agree on the thing. So the understanding for the AI. So if we give it something, then if we give it something in Markdown, JSON, plain text, HTML, the understanding is high. If we give it something in PDF, the understanding is very low. It goes in and affects the reliability of the models too, that it's more reliable when we use the correct language. And the amount of tokens that is used to convert this is, there's a huge difference there too. With Markdown, then it's very efficient. If we use JSON, not so much. HTML, not so much. Like PDF, not at all. So the difference between the different models is, as I mentioned, that the free version has 8,000 tokens, where the Business Pro version has 128,000. So we can convert that into usable words. Then we can say like, how many words is that per page? Then total pages. So that means when you have the like free version, $8 version, it can grasp, it can like have around 20 to 24 pages total. The thing is that includes input, output, memory, and chat history, and conversion into something. So if it starts with you giving it something it can't understand, then it needs to spend tokens trying to convert this PDF into like Markdown, so it understands what have you given to it, right? And because of that, then the number of pages go down, and then the context gets smaller. If it's a small PDF, 1 to 2 pages, it's okay. But if you have a PDF that's maybe like 20, 40, 60 pages, then you see then it's not possible for the model to like grasp the content maybe. Then if we give it the same document but give it in Markdown, then it's much easier for the language model to understand what we're talking about. So the Plus model 88 to 96 pages, Pro model 320 to 360 pages. So that means like 10 to 12 pages for input, or 160 with the Pro model input output. There's another thing that goes in and like affects this too, and that is language, right? So if we're using like writing in Chinese, Spanish, Danish, not English, then it can use like 5 to 15% more tokens, in some cases even more. And then if we add like the messy PDFs that spends like 20 to 60 tokens on top, you see then the context window of the language model gets very small. It can't remember what it did yesterday, because if we have the free model and maybe the Plus model, right? Because the context window gets too small. So it's actually very important to talk to it in a language when we get more advanced that it can understand. So Markdown is built with like hashtags and stuff. So I'll get into that in just a moment and show you how it looks like, right? But the big general concept here is like, we do not want to communicate with the language models using PDF. We would use Markdown, or would use text instead, right? So to write in Markdown, then ChatGPT has a text editor, and the same with Gemini. So I'll show how to go into that, and that's called Canvas. So inside ChatGPT, we'd click the plus, go to more, and we go to the thing called Canvas. And then we can ask it anything. So in this case, I just asked it to explain the difference between PDF and large language models, right? So it says here, right? So Markdown, PDFs is much better for large language models. Plain structured text, reads directly, no layout, no noise, fewer tokens, lower cost, higher accuracy. And if you're going to program models and like do models where it's doing stuff for other people, then you see like it's a good idea to use this thing, right? Because it's cheaper. And if we want to go download what we've written in Markdown in the Canvas document, we can go to download, and then we can click the Markdown. Inside Gemini, we go to the tools, we go to Canvas, we can ask Gemini, we can put the same thing, explain very short in Canvas why Markdown is superior to PDF with large language models. And it will tell you that like the structure versus visual, token efficiency, parsing accuracy, editability. And then we can go up here, and then we can export it, in this case, to Docs. So it will actually export it to Google Docs. And then inside Google Docs, we can go in, and then we can download it as Markdown, and then we can feed the Markdown document back to the language models. If we want to go in and like edit them manually, we can download them to our computer. Then if we don't have Google Docs, we can go in, click it, right click it, and then we can open with. If we have a Mac computer, then we'll use text edit. On a Windows machine, we'll use edit in Notepad. Edit in Notepad actually shows us what it looks like. So we see here, like, so we have why Markdown outperformed PDFs for large language models, much bigger than structure versus visuals. And we have like the 1, 2, 3, 4, and we have like the different things, right? So inside the Notepad, we can click View, and we can click Markdown, and then we have the formatted now. We can go click the syntax instead, and now we can see that the headline is clearly marked. It's a hashtag, 2 stars at the end. And then the language model now doesn't need to spend any tokens trying to figure out, is this a headline? Because it's right there. And the next one, like hashtag, star, 1 / dot, structure versus visual, star. So this is written for language models, not written for us, right? That's why we have PDF. But for them, this is like what it is. It doesn't need to think. It's just, whoa, it's there, right? And then they can just focus on the context. Word doesn't have a like built-in thing for saving as Markdown, but then we can like save it as a text or as a website. So as I mentioned, websites are pretty cool, right? Like tells if it's a header or something like that. So if we are thinking of the brain of the AI, Markdown beats the PDF. So if we want to communicate and like write instructions for the AI models, it's good to write it in Markdown. Yeah. So I know this is like a little bit difficult subject. I just wanted to talk about it because it's quite important. If you want, subscribe to the channel. I have 2 videos where I talk about like Gemini Gems, Gemini ChatGPT project, which is like mini ChatGPTs we can create. If you want to watch that, links to those up here. If you like the video, give it a like. If you don't like it, give it a dislike. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day.